Hi folks, MacT here, and got a couple of things that I want to go over with everybody. And the number one thing I want to get out of the way, of course, is our new members. And I will go ahead and go through them. We had quite a few. We had Dougal, Wayne, Shannon, Ben and Aaron, Bob, Carlos, Jose, Kenneth, Mike, Bobby, George, Dorsey, Louis, Dan, Jonathan, Janice, Jonathan, Nicole, Jose, and of course Misty are all some of our new members here on MACTFORDEDGE. And of course we have a lot of things going on here this Thanksgiving weekend. Some folks are going through. We've had, as you saw the cover photo, very important to check those spark plugs before you install them, folks. When you look at them, make sure that they are gapped properly. Now you just take your spark plug, right? And you want to take it open the box. Just check it out, okay? Even though it's brand new and they say it was gapped, you want to take that spark plug out and you want to make sure that you check the gap on the end of the spark plug and make sure that that gap is appropriate, okay? Make sure that it is in there and of course it is appropriately gapped. If it is touching like that picture you see there, then, you know, you need to gap it, and they do make spark plug gaps tools to help you do that, but you do want to make sure that you do that and check that out. Otherwise you could end up with problems. You know, there's somebody here, Dan just posted 21 minutes ago, oil filters, what's the best? Well, I've been looking at it, and believe it or not, cost-wise and from things that I've seen, you have essentially the Royal Purple. The last video I watched, the Royal Purple and the AMSOIL oil filters are virtually sourced from the same company. Although the AMSOIL filter is the lowest rated micron level of all the filters tested. Okay, it's at 20 microns. I think the next closest one is 21 microns. Based on my last oil analysis, you know, the lab, Blackstone, said that my oil filter from AMSOIL is doing excellent at oil filtration for particulates. So all I can say, folks, is don't go cheap on them. Cheap means bad, okay? And as the old saying goes, you know, what you pay for is what you get. So if you go out and buy a $5 oil filter, that is what you're getting. So Dan, that's my word to you. Go with the most cost effective for you, but spend a few bucks on it. You'll be happier. And you guys did see me, of course, playing with fire. Don't do that at home. You know, I've worked with chemicals and do a lot of things with them, and I purposely did not let it blow up. I changed the formula so that it would just make smoke. A little bit of fire, but mostly smoke. So I didn't want to blow it up and get the neighbors calling on me. So they were watching. But anyway, yeah, I did repair my snowblower, and of course that needed to be done because, hey, it's going to snow. So just a little display that I can do other things other than working on my, you know, FORDEDGE. I do other things. I fix things. My honey-do list is long. But we got Justin. He's been out there running around dirty roads. Hey, Justin, I feel for you. I don't wash my edge either. But great photos, by the way. Let's see. We have Jared Kidd. He's got his PTU issue that he's posted on there. And he says he loves his FORDEDGE, but it seems I've almost had it in the shop once a week since I've had it. The PTU is out. Jared, when you get that new PTU installed, have them install a plug in it. I don't care if they say it'll void the warranty. Guess what? The warranty is voided anyway when you take and run it with the same oil for what? 50,000 miles and wonder why it went bad, you got to change the oil, and an oil plug in it will allow you to drain it and change it, and it'll last longer than even the warranty. As far as new members, we got those red Ford Edge Sports. Aren't they sharp looking for our new members here? Misty, who joined, and apparently she drives it and he fixes it. I guess that's a working agreement. Seems to work for me and my wife. Anyway, let's see, Mitchell Mattis, I want to put out a little bit on him. He's doing a Drive Tribe, and of course, Drive Tribe is something that was started by Grand Tour. Now, if you're not familiar with Grand Tour is the new Top Gear. They took all the three main characters out of the Top Gear that were fired in, the UK, and they have started with Amazon, and they are starting their own show. And this is the second show that played last night, Friday night, on Amazon Prime. So if you don't have Amazon Prime, pay for that. You get free shipping and, of course, free movies, and you can watch Grand Tour, which is a great show. I watched the first one, and they had the Mustang Rocket. Oh my gosh, great car. Really loved watching the show. Let's see, what else do we have going on? Transmission fluid changes, flushes that Manoran put out. And Mano, he's been working hard on this page with me and keeping the group going. We also had some from overseas, from Jose, do the translation. But basically, he has a TSS, OSS sensor thing. Hey, that thing shows up all the time, don't it? Change the fluid, give it a good flush. If it still has the problems, at least you got new fluid in it when you go to work on the TSS, OSS sensors. And keep in mind, folks, I know a lot of you like to work on them and want to save the money, but you have to be meticulous, okay? You have to do everything right. And if one little thing's wrong, make sure you buy all the extra parts. And quite frankly, I do recommend maybe a zip kit for it, because you got your spacers and everything else that needs to be worked on. So, me personally, I'm not a big fan of working on transmissions. It's just something that about them, I'll shy away from it if I can. But let's see, we had Quentin. He, of course, is out killing birds with his Edge. Turkey hunting, hawk hunting, whatever he's doing out there. Better watch it out. Low flying aircraft there might be the next thing. Then Shannon Pauly, she, of course, has her BAMR. What do we call that? That BAMR, okay. Let's see, that's a short term for the piano rough that is on there, and of course she has it completely locked up and has to get it worked on. Keep in mind, folks, that the motors run, okay, they have tracks and they roll back and forth and they're reeled back in by the motors, and those tracks can get worn out. Okay, they're like big, heavy, thick cables, and as they wind them up and roll them back and forth, they have runners, and what keeps those cables from crunching up and doing all sorts of weird stuff is they're in like little rails that enclose them, and when you enclose something like that, it gives it strength. So that cable would be really flexible if it wasn't enclosed, and since it is enclosed, it then has to follow it because it can't double up or anything, and then it has to force the window, the piano roof window, open or closed. But again, like I told her online, this is a window that was not made to be used like your car door. Okay, open, close, open, close. It's just not built for that. I think that's the biggest fault with these Vista roofs, as they call them, or the BAMR. If you guys don't know what the BAMR is, it's a big moon roof, right? Okay, so that is what is nicknamed. But basically, we also have, of course, Dennis. He's out there going through wheel bearings. Hey, if you start hearing a little bit of while you're driving at low speeds, then it gets louder and louder. And then when you turn your edge one way or the other, and the grrr goes away and gets quiet, and then when you straighten back up, it goes grrr again. Guess what? Now you got to figure out which wheel is it, front, back, right, left, and then you got wheel bearing problems. How do I know? Been through that many. on my 2008, 6 wheel bearings on my 2008 and on 285,000 miles. The first gen Edge was heck on wheel bearings. Okay, I'm at 169,000 and I am on the original wheel bearings on my 2011. So that being said, we're good to go, and we'll just keep moving along with that. But we got also David. He got his brake booster and his Vista roof all fixed up. Thank you for the Ford. I guess he has an ESP. Replaced everything. His brake booster failed, and we already did that video on a brake booster, but I want to get into brake booster. The main part of this, what I said. Now, the 2015-16 Ford Edge I've been reading on is suffering from a reoccurring brake booster issue. Different thing. Not, they have brakes, but now they went to the opposite end of the scale with Ford. Before, we didn't have brakes. Now in the 15 and 16, folks are complaining too much brake. In other words, they just touch it and it like locks it up, and then boom, they're slammed into the windshield. As it turns out, Ford is redesigned, I guess, or readjusted the brake booster for the 15-16. And the only way to fix this sudden deceleration issue is to have your brake booster replaced. So if you have some brake pedal that as soon as you touch it, it locks the brakes up, this is the exact opposite issue of the one where it failed and you had no brakes. So again, Ford's still trying to find that middle ground. We all want that booster that works just right. So that is an issue that's popping up. So if you have a 15-16 and it is having some sort of brake issue where it's locking them up, then by all means take it in there and have them look at it. And apparently they are fixing it, and they do have a new brake booster to replace that. So I'm not saying it's everyone, but there are quite a few complaints. Now, the next one is on the 2015-16 Ford Edge. They incorporated the electronic adaptive steering. They have abandoned the hydraulic steering of the previous two generations. The Gen 1 and 1.5 refresh all had hydraulic power steering. Now, as I went over in the review of the 16 that Mano had brought over, they are electronic steering. The problem is that there is a bunch of National Traffic Highway Safety Traffic, safecar.gov complaints on the adaptive steering, because when people are using it, it turns 90 degrees and then stops. Okay? That is one of the symptoms of it, but they're putting it from normal to sport, and apparently if you take it from normal and put it into sport, the issue doesn't happen. This is what I'm reading on, and I might need to go more in depth on it, but in a nutshell, Ford is working on a fix. It's not necessarily a programming, it's not necessarily a mechanical, it is a complicated issue. But if you have a 15 or 16 with this electronic and adaptive steering on it, and your wheel starts going to one side, and when you turn it off, it just turns off 90 degrees right or left, you have an issue, and you should take it in because you're under warranty. Make the complaints, and there is a real big push for safecar.gov on this to register this as a complaint, as a safety issue, because if you really look at it, folks, think of it this way. You have steering, you have braking. Braking, you have your foot pedal, okay, and then you have your emergency brake. You have a redundant system there, okay? Steering. What do you have redundant there? Okay, so you always want to make sure your steering is in good shape, because you have no redundant system. You have no backup. Steering is steering. That's it. You're done. If it fails, you're out of control. So you want to make sure that you do, of course, keep your steering in good shape, and of course take it in and have it repaired. But that is it for the 15-16. If you do have that 15-16, take it in. And if you have problems with that steering, get it taken care of. But some people have said, like I said, I want to reiterate, if you put it into sport mode, apparently this doesn't happen. It's in the normal mode. That's what I'm getting out of all the complaints and everything I've read. But there does have to be a fix, and Ford is apparently working on it maybe, but nothing so far yet. Now, as far as anything else, I did put up a lot of, files here on some things that we had been doing yesterday, and some other questions folks have. But let's see what we had. Spark plugs, like I said, had a guy with the spark plugs, George. He was working on it. He had a P01112 and a P0016. And of course, it turns out that it's not a timing issue on there per se. It's a VVT issue. Variable valve timing solenoid is probably bad. It's on the valve cover. I'm waiting for his repair to tell me, because his last message to me was he's comatose from eating turkey. So once he comes out of his coma, we'll all find out whether or not the fix was just a VCT on there, and we'll just go from there. But let's see, Quentin, he of course he got lost in Kansas City. He doesn't know how to get home. So if anybody knows where Quentin is, by all means help him find his way back home. And then of course climate controls are rearing their heads because everybody wants heat now. The actuators are failing, and I'm going to do a video on actuators. I just have not done them yet. So I think I got a problem with mine. I've managed to adjust it so it works for me, but quite frankly, I'm just busy, so I gotta get at it. But if you are having problems, a lot of times it could just be the programming on it, or the control module itself is bad. The other thing is check the actuators, make sure they are turning and spinning when you, of course, adjust and blend and everything. And a lot of times the passenger or driver side actuator fails. After all, they are electric motors that make little contacts, and there could become a dead spot in that motor when it's turning. And if it hits that dead spot, it'll just sit there and shake, and it won't move. Okay, it won't move one way or the other. So if it hits that dead spot, then it's stuck. It won't move. And you can't turn it because it's a motor. It's a corkscrew thing, and it won't move if you just try to do it by hand. You'll break it. So you want to make sure you do check that out. But I'll cover that here in the near future. I also want to give congratulations to Jennifer Romano, because apparently she has a 1-year anniversary, and with her Edge, I forget what she named it. But she has her Edge and everything going on there. And then last but not least, I'm not quite done yet. Thanksgiving greetings were fantastic by all the group members, and I hope everybody's having a great Thanksgiving. And of course, let's see, Matt, he's got a passenger seat warmer going on that is either working or not working. Hey, just it defaults to an off position if it detects wrong. We just don't want you to burn up your car, Matt. So, and those seat warmers are expensive, folks. Yes, they're not cheap to replace. So you might want to just live without it. But it just depends on what you want to do. But I posted several VCT files on the Ford Edge first generation. And then, of course, we have transmission fluid temps that are cooling down. Well, it is winter, so, and even mine have cooled down. As far as some questions people ask about engine idle. Now, some are saying, oh, my RPM's here, then it goes down, and then it comes back up. Let me explain this just a little bit to y'all to try to answer that question. Now, there are multiple systems that draw on the Edge. And when these systems draw, they take power. They add resistance to the engine. In order for the engine to compensate for this extra resistance, extra work, it has to give more gas. So that happens not as fast as you want to think it does. What happens is when the compressor on your AC turns on, it draws the RPM down. Now the PCM gets the signal because it doesn't necessarily react as fast. It's reactionary to the demand. It is not preconceiving it, otherwise the RPM would go up immediately, then drop to normal. But what it is, it's a reactionary response. So when the compressor turns on, it sends a signal to the PCM saying, hey, I turned on, and then the engine RPM go down, so the PCM says, okay, throttle body, more gas. Well, you're going to feel a drop, and then it's going to come back up. Now, you may think, oh, something's wrong with my edge. No, this is a normal thing. Now, the compressor will do this when the AC's on, okay? Now, the compressor will do this if you have defrost on, because the defrost, even though your AC light ain't on, the defrost uses the compressor. It uses conditioned air to keep your windshield clean from frost and humidity and everything else. You can't just shove moist air in it, it'll just fog up. So even though you think you don't have your compressor on, you do have your compressor on. The other thing that you need to keep in mind is that your fans draw power. Now, when they draw power from the battery, the alternator says, oh, I have more demand, the battery is running down, I have to turn on. Again, your engine RPM will drop due to the increased demand of the alternator sucking more juice and having more force and resistance. Then the PCM says, oh, I need to give it some more gas. And then you drop down and come back up again. This is all normal, folks. Your ups and downs, if you let it set long enough, you're going to see that. You're going to see it cycle on and off, and you're going to see it cycle back on and off. It's normal. Now, the only way it wouldn't do this is if nothing's turning on. Okay, if everything is off, you turn off your climate control, you don't use any fans, in other words, it's a cold engine, your RPM is going to be great. There's going to be no fluctuation. But as the fans have to turn on, so does the power consumption, and thus the RPM adjustment. So I'm hoping I explained that pretty good for most of you so you can understand what it is. But it is perfectly normal, folks. Okay? Now, if it turns on and your engine stumbles and dies, then you got bigger issues. And it was probably not running good anyway. So, you know, it's all hand in hand on that as far as that goes. But I am seeing a lot more folks taking and participating in the use of the forescan with the OBD Lynx MX. Hey, that is an insurance policy you need to have, folks. If you want anything, one thing for Christmas, you got your smartphone, the app's $5 and the OBD Lynx $70 or whatever it costs. That is a perfect Christmas present. You can monitor that Ford Edge all day and night, or any other vehicle with any other program for that matter. So the OBD Lynx is a good choice. Other things, we have multiple people starting to hit high mileage with their edges, and of course having a great time. But as with all things, we had, who was this? Joe O'Brien. I can't pronounce his name. He's from, California. Old Joe here decided that his transmission issue was, 6 one way, half dozen another. So he went ahead and went with a full pull out of his transmission and a replacement with a new rebuilt transmission or new transmission. So that will end any issues he'll have. Plus he'll have a good warranty on it to boot, so he'll be happy with that once it's done. But other than that, that's pretty much a little bit of the review of the week. I don't want to go real long on this, so I'm going to let you all go and, of course, enjoy the rest of the weekend. And I do hope that all of you had your feet hit the floor today, because mine did, and I'm having a great day. And with that being said, have a very fine weekend for the rest of your Thanksgiving.